A few months ago, I went on a road trip. I was 35 and loved exploring small towns for my travel blog. It was routine, nothing strange about it. I'd never stop thinking about what went wrong that night. I pulled into a quaint roadside inn. It looked charming but old. The sun set behind the hills, casting strange shadows across the lawn. I checked in without any issues and went to my room. It felt quiet. I didn't think much of it at the time. That night, after a day of taking photos, I heard voices. Muffled laughter came from the next room. It felt like they were having fun, but it made me uneasy. I focused on editing my photos, hoping the sounds would go away, but they only got louder. The next morning, I decided to explore the town. As I walked, I noticed a group of locals. They stared at me, curious but strange. Their questions made me uncomfortable. "Why come here? What do you seek?" one asked. My heart raced. I wondered if they were playing a game or hiding something. After that, I went back to my room. A chill hit me as I stepped inside. I froze when I saw the floor. There were markings I couldn't understand, strange scratching patterns that didn't make sense. My camera and notebooks were in odd places. I couldn't remember moving them. I felt my chest tighten. Maybe someone had entered my room, I thought, but I didn't want to dwell on it. I rushed back outside, craving fresh air. The locals were still there, their eyes on me as I walked. Whispering among themselves, they made me feel like I was being watched. Later that evening, I sat outside the inn with my laptop. The sun was gone. The shadows grew darker, and I listened for the laughter, but only heard silence. I felt caught between wanting to leave and needing to know what was happening. Then I heard a voice. It was soft, almost a whisper, asking, "Why do you stay here?" I turned around, ready to respond, but nobody was there. My heart raced. Maybe it was just my imagination. I convinced myself to go back inside. I locked the door and sat on the edge of the bed. I thought sleep would help clear my mind. That's when I spotted a figure outside my window. I couldn't see clearly, but I felt cold. I should have left. Something kept me there, but I didn't understand what it was. The watchful eyes of the locals haunted me. I felt stuck, trapped between fear and curiosity. The night stretched on, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. What was real? What was my mind playing tricks on me? I didn't know. All I did was sit in the dark and listen. I barely slept that night. The figure outside my window haunted me, though I couldn't see its face. As I lay there, every creak of the inn felt amplified. I could hear the wind rattling the old window frames, but it sounded like whispers. Morning came, but the sunlight felt different. It had a dull, washed-out quality, as if the world was refusing to wake up properly. I stood up and looked out the window. The figure was gone, but the grass was wet with a thick fog that clung to the ground. I took a deep breath, still unsettled. I decided I would confront the feeling that had settled deep in my stomach. I returned to the town square to gather more information. I approached a small cafe, hoping to find someone who could shed some light on this odd place. As I entered, the bell above the door chimed, and the chatter stopped. All eyes turned toward me, lips pressing into thin lines. It was the same locals from the day before. I approached the counter, my voice shaky. "Can I get a coffee, please?" The woman behind the counter looked at me and paused, her gaze penetrating. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly, as if she thought nobody else would hear. I frowned, taken aback. "What do you mean?" She leaned closer, glancing nervously at the people around us. "You don't belong. What you search for, it's not here." Confusion wrapped around me like a heavy coat. I tried to push back, to ask more, but she stepped back, her eyes darting to the doors. Before I could respond, she turned to the table where several older men were sitting. They watched me closely, whispering. Then one of them, a man with a thick beard and piercing blue eyes, got up and approached. He spoke softly but with authority. You need to leave this place, tonight. It's for your own good. I was stunned. Why? I just want to understand. He shook his head. Understanding can bring danger. Leave while you still can. I felt my heart race again. It all felt like a strange game, but now the stakes felt real. I left the cafe, feeling their eyes still on me. I didn't want to appear weak. I needed answers, not fear. I wandered back toward the inn, my mind racing. Maybe I had stumbled into something sinister. The day dragged on, filled with unease. I tried to plan my next move, but found I could only think about the scratching marks I'd seen on my floor. Then, just as I stepped inside my room, I froze. Something had changed. My belongings were rearranged again, and on the bed there was a note. I quickly closed the door behind me. The words were messily scrawled. They know you're here. You have to trust me. I hadn't brought anyone with me. I was alone. Fear gripped me again as I realized I was deeper in this mystery than I'd anticipated. I had to figure out who was behind this. That's when I heard it again. The soft, haunting voice from the night before. Clearer this time. Find me. I stood by the door, unsure what to do next. Felt like the walls were closing in, the weight of whatever was happening pressing down harder. I needed to know who was reaching out to me, but I was terrified of what might happen if I did. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The room felt too small, too confining, the note crumpling in my hand. I needed to find this person who was trying to reach me. There had to be more to all of this, and maybe it was tied to the figure I had seen at my window. I glanced at the door. What if I was being watched? The townspeople had made it clear I was not welcome, but I couldn't just sit here and wait. I had to know more. Gathering my courage, I opened the door and stepped out into the corridor. The air felt thick, pressing against me as I made my way down the hall. I could hear murmurs through the walls, whispers that seemed to echo my own thoughts. I paused at the staircase, feeling uncertain. My mind raced with possibilities. Who was I supposed to trust? What danger lay ahead? Then I heard it again, a soft tapping. It was coming from the end of the corridor. My heart raced as I followed the sound, each step echoing in the emptiness. I approached a door marked with peeling paint. The tapping grew louder, more insistent. I hesitated, adrenaline coursing through me. What if it was a trap? But the curiosity pulled me in. I reached for the knob, my hand shaking. I paused again, inhaling deeply, and finally opened the door. The room was dark, but cluttered with dusty furniture and shadowy corners. In the center, a figure hunched over something on a table. I squinted, trying to see. "Hello?" I called, my voice barely above a whisper. Slowly, the figure turned. It was a young woman, her hair disheveled and eyes wide with a mix of fear and urgency. "You shouldn't be here," she exclaimed, her voice shaky. "They will find you." "Who? Who will find me?" I pressed, stepping further inside. "They can see you," she said quickly. "You're not safe. You need to leave this town, now." I couldn't understand. "I don't even know what's going on. Please, you have to tell me." She took a step back, glancing toward the window. "I can't. If they know I'm talking to you, we're both in danger. You need to go. Trust me." Just as I opened my mouth to protest, a loud crash echoed from downstairs. My heart dropped. The sound was followed by hurried footsteps. Whoever was down there was coming closer. I looked back at her, panic in my chest. What do I do? "There's a back door. It leads to the alley. Go," she urged, her eyes wide with fear. Without thinking, I turned and sprinted toward the door at the far end of the room. I could hear voices rising and falling as I pushed through, adrenaline pumping in my veins. That was when I saw it, a shadow moving swiftly across the alleyway, cloaked in fog. "Find me," the voice whispered again, but this time it felt like a command. I hesitated. I had two clear choices: follow the voice into the unknown, or run away and leave the chaos behind. As I turned back toward the direction I came from, I caught a glimpse of the figure darting away. My breath caught in my throat. I was faced with the choice of chasing after answers or running for my life. With my heart pounding, I made my decision. I bolted through the back door, my heart racing as I burst into the damp alley. The cool air hit my face like a slap, sharpening my senses. I instinctively looked to my left and right, scanning for any signs of danger. The alley was deserted, save for bits of old debris and the ominous shadows cast by the surrounding buildings. I turned my attention down the alley, where the shadow had disappeared into the thick fog. "Find me," the voice echoed in my head, stirring up a mix of fear and urgency. I stepped forward, an involuntary pull guiding me to the end of the alley. What would I find there? I could hear distant voices behind me, urgent, angry whispers that rippled through the air. They were searching for me. Panic surged through my veins, but I pushed it down, focusing instead on the figure I'd seen moments before. I had to know what they wanted. With each step, my breath quickened. I felt exposed and vulnerable. I knew I had to move fast. As I neared the end of the alley, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A figure emerged from the fog just a few yards away. It was the young woman I had seen earlier. She was standing by the entrance of another building, looking around nervously. "Over here," she called out, urgency in her voice. I sprinted toward her, my heart pounding in my chest. "What's happening?" I asked, grasping her arm. "Who are those people?" "They're part of the town's dark side," she replied, pulling me into the shadows. "They know about the message, the one you found. They'll do anything to keep it hidden." I stared at her, confusion swirling in my mind. "What message? What do you mean?" She hesitated, her eyes darting toward the end of the alley. "There's no time. If they catch us, it's over. Follow me." I followed her into a narrow doorway, and we descended into a dimly lit basement. The damp air enveloped us as she hurriedly closed the door behind us. I felt a rush of uncertainty. "What are we doing here?" I whispered. "Trust me," she said, her voice trembling. "We need to find the truth. I don't know why you were drawn here, but it's important. We have to figure this out together." As she spoke, I noticed drawings pinned to the walls, disturbing images that hinted at something sinister. Words scrawled in a frantic script surrounded them. The sketches, but I couldn't make sense of them. Fear coiled in my stomach. What had I stumbled into? Then a loud crash echoed from above. The door shuddered in its frame. "We have to move," she urged, grabbing my hand. I glanced back at the door, dread flooding my senses. Whoever was upstairs was getting closer. "Where do we go?" "There's a secret exit," she said, leading me down another dimly lit corridor. Just then, I heard harsh voices spilling down the stairs. "Split up! We need to find them!" My breath caught in my throat. We were out of time. That was when I realized whatever was hidden within this town was more dangerous than I could have imagined. I felt a chilling certainty. Everything was about to change. I sprinted behind her, my heart pounding in sync with her hurried footsteps. The corridor was narrow, walls closing in on us like a vice. Faint light flickered above, casting eerie shadows that danced around us. I could hear them, the voices from the upstairs, getting louder. "Stay quiet," she whispered, as we reached the end of the corridor. My senses were on high alert. What kind of trouble had I walked into? The young woman stopped in front of a heavy door, its wood splintered and worn. "This leads out to the back of the building. We'll have a moment to catch our breath." I nodded, but doubt nodded me. "What about those people? What do they want?" "They want to protect their secrets," she replied, wrenching the door open. A gust of cool air hit us, and I felt a rush of hope. But as we stepped outside, the eerie quiet made me uneasy. The alley behind the building opened up into a narrow street, shrouded in fog. I could easily get lost in the twisting pathways if I wasn't careful. "What now?" "We have to find the others," she said, scanning the street. "They can help us." "Others? Who are they?" "People who know what's really going on. People who also want the truth." Before I could ask more, there was a deafening crash from inside the building. My stomach dropped. "They're coming! Run!" she shouted, yanking me forward into the thick fog. The sound of heavy boots echoed behind us, and panic surged through me. I desperately looked for a place to hide, but the street felt endlessly empty. Then I noticed it, a small door set into the side of one of the buildings. It looked neglected and covered in grime, but it was better than being caught. "There!" I pointed, and we dashed toward it. The door creaked as we pushed it open, and we stumbled into another cramped space, this one filled with old furniture and boxes. My heart raced, each sound amplified in the silence. "We should be safe here for a moment," she panted, sliding the door shut. "What is this place?" I asked, scanning the room. "An old supply shop. People don't come here anymore. But it has history." Her brow furrowed as she glanced out a dusty window. "We can't stay too long. They'll search every inch of this town looking for us." I took a breath. "What do we do then?" She took a step back, and that's when I saw it, something glinting under the pile of boxes. I walked over, brushing aside the debris, and unearthed an old, tarnished locket. "What is it?" she asked, stepping closer. I opened it, my eyes widening at the faded photograph inside. It wasn't just any picture. It was a group of people, all connected somehow. One of them looked disturbingly familiar. "That's my mother," I breathed. But the chill didn't stop there. It meant someone was connected to this town, to the dangers lurking in the shadows. "Your mother? How?" "I don't know," I stammered. The weight of that single image settled over me, filling me with dread. Suddenly, a loud bang resounded against the door. Footsteps thundered toward us. "They're here!" My mind raced. Why was I drawn back into this fractured past? Everything seemed to connect, but I had no idea how or where it would lead. Then the door splintered. The door burst open, and I stumbled back, my heart racing anew. The sight before us was chaotic. A large man, face obscured by shadow, stormed into the room, eyes wild. He scanned the space, searching for us. "Quick!" the young woman hissed, shoving me toward the far corner of the room. I ducked behind a moth-eaten armchair, my breath bubbling in my throat like a trapped animal. "I know you're in here," the man yelled, voice thick with anger. "You can't hide from what you've uncovered." "What does he mean by that?" I whispered. But the woman only held a finger to her lips. The tension in the air felt electric. I stole a glance at the man. He was now rummaging through boxes, kicking things aside with little regard. I tried to focus, but my mind was swirling. An unease built in my chest, pushing me closer to panic. Then I caught a glimpse of something on the back wall, a door I hadn't noticed before. It was slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness beckoning me. "If we can just make it to that door, we might—" Before I could finish, the man turned suddenly, eyes locking onto mine. "There you are!" My heart dropped. I bolted without thinking, lunging toward the door across the room. The woman followed closely, and we barreled through just as he lunged after us. I felt a grip on my shoulder, but managed to twist away, bursting through the door into the narrow corridor beyond. "Keep running!" she shouted. I didn't need telling twice. I sprinted down the corridor, the sound of the man's furious footsteps trailing just behind. I pushed through a flimsy door at the other end, bursting into a dimly lit stairwell. "Where do we go?" I panted, glancing around. The walls felt like they were closing in again. "Down," she urged, pulling me forward. I didn't know where down would lead, but I trusted her. We tumbled down the creaking steps, my feet slipping on the worn wood. At the bottom, we were met with another locked door. Come on, she pleaded, rushing to the handle. Her hands trembled as she jiggled it, desperation etched on her face. It's stuck! The window, I gasped, pointing to a grimy pane on the far side. We had no time to waste. She nodded and raced toward it. I could hear the man now on the stairs, his heavy breaths getting closer. Hurry! I pushed against the door with all my weight, but it wouldn't budge. A splintering sound echoed above us. He was coming faster. Then I heard it, the thud of something heavy being thrown. Please, please, I murmured, panic creeping into my voice. But it worked. I felt the door jolt slightly. Keep pushing, she shouted. With one final push, the door swung open, and we both tumbled into a small courtyard filled with overgrown weeds and crumbling brick. Which way? I asked, breathless. Shadows moved around us, and I caught the glint of light reflecting from something just outside the courtyard's boundaries. Over there, she pointed, charging toward a gap in the stone wall, ragged with ivy. As we squeezed through, I glanced back just in time to see the man emerge from the doorway, shaking his head in frustration. You can't escape this. You have to face it. A chill rolled down my spine as we darted into the alley, pressing against the wall for cover. Every instinct told me to hide, but I also felt a strange pull toward whatever was waiting just beyond our escape. What's on the other side? I asked, my curiosity mixing with fear. I don't know, she replied, looking pale. Then I realized, with a sinking feeling, that I had to find out. I squeezed through the gap, the rough stone scraping my arms. My heart raced as I emerged on the other side, the young woman right behind me. We found ourselves in another narrow alley, this one dimmer and more confined, with towering walls of concrete looming overhead. The air was damp, and a sense of foreboding hung around us. Where now? I asked, glancing around. My instinct screamed at me to find a place to hide, but the alley seemed to stretch endlessly. There were no doors, no exits I could see, just shadows and darkness creeping in like a thick fog. Let's keep moving, she urged, her voice a whisper. I can't stay here. As we crept further down the alley, a flicker of movement caught my eye from above. I tilted my head and squinted up at the fire escape ladder that clung to the wall. My breath hitched again. What if we climb up? But he'll see us, she replied, eyes darting with urgency. We need to stay low. Another crash echoed from the courtyard we had just escaped, and I could hear the man's angry footsteps pounding against the ground. He was closing in. Down there! I pointed toward a shadowy opening that seemed to lead into another alley. It didn't feel safe, but neither did waiting here. Maybe it goes somewhere. Okay, she agreed reluctantly, and we dashed toward the opening. It was smaller than I had hoped, but we managed to squeeze through, shivering as darkness enveloped us. Inside, the air was stale, and I could barely make out the outlines of old crates and discarded furniture. I leaned against the cool wall to catch my breath, but my thoughts kept racing. What does he mean about what we uncovered? I wondered aloud. I don't know, but whatever it was, it's dangerous, she replied. Her voice trembled. We have to figure it out, but first we need to get away from him. Just as I started to feel some semblance of hope, I saw something glinting in the dim light. A piece of metal? I moved closer to investigate, and my heart sank as I realized it was a key. A heavy, ornate key, lying on the ground half buried in dust and strewn under an old piece of fabric. That could open something, I said, excitement and fear battling in my chest. I picked it up, feeling its weight. Maybe it could get us out, she suggested, and her eyes lit with a flicker of hope. But where? Before I could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed in the distance, growing louder. We need to go, I urged, stuffing the key into my pocket. We crept cautiously to the back wall, peering through a grimy window. Outside, the alley appeared deserted, but my instincts screamed that something wasn't right. "We can't stay here. He'll find us," I whispered. "What if he's already out there?" she asked, panic tightening her voice. "Then we face him together," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. "But if he knows where we are, we're not safe anywhere." Just as I turned from the window, I heard a thump from the entrance we just came through. My heart lurched. Someone was there. "We need a plan," I said, my mind racing. And that's when I saw it. An old map pinned to the wall, its edges yellowed and frayed. "Look!" I gasped, moving toward it. I brushed aside the dust hiding its surface, revealing a layout of the entire building. With a racing heartbeat, I studied it, my eyes absorbing the lines and passages that twisted throughout. There was a route marked that led to an even darker section, but it also led towards something labeled exit. "What if we can go this way?" I said, pointing at the route. Her eyes were wide, reflecting both curiosity and fear. "It could lead us towards safety," she breathed. Just then, the footsteps stopped. Silence engulfed the space, thick and suffocating. We shared a glance, the question hanging above us. "What if he finds us?" she whispered. "Then we'd better move fast." We both took a deep breath before slipping the map into my pocket and moving toward that marked escape. It was the right choice. As we began to navigate the unseen, a feeling of dread washed over me. Someone was already watching. We moved through the dim space, my heart still pounding in my chest. Each step felt like a gamble. As we carefully followed the route on the map, I realized that the walls around us were covered in grime and darkness, almost as if they were alive, hiding secrets. Then I heard it, a soft sound behind us, like the brush of footsteps against the dust. Was he already after us? I glanced at her, and the look of fear on her face mirrored my own. We couldn't stop now. "Let's stick to the plan," I whispered, pointing again at the map. "If we go through this next section, we should reach the exit." My mind raced with thoughts of what could happen if we were caught. The man's anger, the mystery of what we'd stumbled into. It all felt like it was closing in around us. As we rounded a corner, I spotted another door ahead. It looked old and weathered, but it was an option. "There, what if we check that?" I suggested, edging toward it. "Are you sure?" she hesitated. "What if it's locked?" "Better than nothing," I tried to sound convincing. I approached the door and pulled on the handle. To my surprise, it creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase that descended into darkness. "Should we go down?" she asked, biting her lip. "We can't stay here." We exchanged one last worried glance before stepping inside. The air turned even cooler, sending chills down my spine. With every step down the staircase, our surroundings shifted into an echoing void. And just as my eyes adjusted to the dark, I could see a faint flickering light at the bottom. "Maybe it leads us to something," I said, feeling a mix of fear and intrigue. As we reached the last step, we found ourselves in a small underground room. The flickering light came from an old lantern hanging from the ceiling, casting eerie shadows on the stones. But what caught my breath was the sight that lay before us. Shelves lined with old books, papers, and bizarre artifacts. There had to be some answers down here. This place? Before I could finish my thought, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps again, louder this time. He was close. My heart skipped. "Quick," I hissed. "We have to look for anything we can use. Information, anything." We began to search frantically, flipping through yellowed pages and dusty tomes, hoping for a clue. About what we'd uncovered. My fingers grazed over a book that seemed different. It was bound in leather, and as I opened it, I felt a strange energy emanate from it. "Wait, this is—" I began, but the door to the room slammed shut, plunging us into dimness. Panic surged as we realized we were trapped. The footsteps outside paused, and I held my breath, waiting. That's when I heard a voice, low, and menacing. Through the thick door. "You shouldn't have come here." A chill ran down my spine. We had barely escaped him before, but now we were cornered, cut off from any hope of safety. I clutched the old book tightly, knowing it might be the key to our survival, or the cause of our doom. My thoughts raced as dread settled in my gut. "We have to act fast," I whispered. "But what if he comes in?" "This can't be how it ends," she said, her voice shaking. But before I could respond, the door rattled violently, and I wondered just how much danger we were really in. The door shuddered again, and I felt the vibrations course through my body. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to make myself small, while she clutched my arm, her grip tight with fear. Her eyes darted around the room, as if looking for an escape that didn't exist. "Can you use that?" she whispered, her voice barely above a breath, eyeing the leather-bound book in my hands. I glanced at it. Its ancient pages seemed to beckon me, promising secrets if I dared to delve deeper. "I don't know," I admitted, "but we need something." The footsteps resumed, this time accompanied by a low murmur that sent chills racing down my spine. He was talking to himself, or maybe to us. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was undeniably sinister. A wild idea took shape in my mind. "What if we try to distract him?" I said, moving closer to her. "If we can make noise, maybe we can get him to look for us elsewhere." "Are you crazy?" she replied, her voice trembling. "That's a terrible idea." I bit my lip, frustration creeping in. "We don't have a choice. If he gets in here, we're done. We need time." I moved to the shelves, rifling through papers and artifacts, looking for anything to create a distraction. My fingers brushed against a strange-looking lantern, the metal cold against my skin. I grabbed it and hurried back to her. "Here, if I can make it flicker or explode, it might create a distraction." "Do you know how to use it?" she asked, fear widening her eyes. "No," I admitted, "but we have to try." I fumbled with the lantern, searching for a switch, a lever, anything. All the while, the rattling of the door sounded more aggressive, as if our pursuer was trying to break in. Before I could find anything useful, something caught my eye, a faint glow emanating from the newly discovered book. I turned toward it, and the light pulsed, illuminating the room in a dim, eerie hue. "Look," I said excitedly, hoping it would ease the tension. "There's something happening with this book." She edged closer, mesmerized by the swirling light. As the glow intensified, the ground beneath us trembled slightly, almost as if responding to the energy. "Do you think it's magic?" she asked, awe mixing with apprehension. "I don't know, but we might not have a choice." Just as I said this, there was a loud crash, planks of wood splintering, the door giving way. "Now or never," I shouted, grabbing the book and opening it wide. I focused on the pulsing light, hoping it would do something, anything in our favor. Suddenly, the room filled with a whirlwind of energy, knocking both of us back. I felt weightlessness, as if reality was bending around us. That's when everything went dark. I'd lost track of time. The shadows closed in, and silence enveloped us. My heart raced, caught between dread and an unexplainable anticipation. And then I heard it. Voices floating through the darkness, whispering secrets that made my skin crawl. "Where are we?" she whispered, her voice echoing in the void, full of confusion and fear. "I don't know," I admitted, panic rising, "but I think he's not far behind us." Before I could react, the whispers grew louder, merging into a singular voice that threatened to consume me. "You shouldn't have come here." It was him. The realization hit me like a brick. And then, without warning, light burst forth, and I found myself staring into the man's eyes. His expression was a mix of surprise and fury. "Welcome to my world." Panic surged as I realized we were now on his turf. Everything felt disoriented, a haze lingering around us like a blanket. I blinked, experiencing a rush as the weight of anger, confusion, and inexplicable curiosity flooded through me. The room looked entirely different, a dimly lit, cavernous space lined with stone walls, and the glow from flickering candles casting eerie shadows. The once familiar sensations were now twisted like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. "How did we end up here?" I whispered, remembering the energy of the book, the way it felt like it pulled us, then threw us into this new trap. I don't know," she stammered, her eyes wide with realization of how serious our situation had escalated. "But we need to find a way out before—" Before what? The question hung in the air, suffocating. I turned, trying to focus on our captured enemy, even as panic coiled in my throat. His figure loomed closer, an unwavering smile curling on his lips. "It's impressive, isn't it?" he purred, gesturing with a hand to the room around us. "This is where the truth lies, the heart of the town's secrets." "Secrets?" I repeated, my voice tight. "What do you mean?" He chuckled softly, an unsettling sound. "You stumbled upon understanding. You knew too much." He stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "And now you're here to learn when you pursue knowledge that was meant to stay buried." The thrill of fear collided with an overwhelming sense of determination. "We are not just going to sit here," I urged, glancing at the young woman beside me. "We'll fight our way out if we have to." "Fight?" he mused, an eyebrow raising in amusement. "Who do you think you are?" An unspoken irritation flew through the air, and I felt heat build inside me. "Someone who's not afraid," I said, my pulse quickening. There was a madness twinkling in his eyes, a gleam that told of power and darkness intertwined. "Fear is the price of knowledge," he replied, leaning against a stone wall casually. "You should embrace it. It heightens your senses." I exchanged a glance with the young woman, a silent agreement flashing between us. Together we had to escape this, whatever this was, and whatever truth lingered in the shadows. "To come here was a choice," he continued, his tone almost gentle. "You should consider what awaits you if you return above. The lid is tight, and you must decide if what lies beneath is worth the risk." "Tell us what lies beneath," I blurted, feeling the weight of my own question pressing down hard on my chest. "Why are you doing this?" He tilted his head, amusement flickering across his face. "That's the thing, my dear. The answers aren't what you expect." He stepped closer again, lowering his voice, conspiratorial. "The townsfolk, they preserve something within themselves, the power to keep what's hidden safe. You're an outsider, and they won't let you stay." "What do you mean?" she asked cautiously, tilting her chin defiantly. "There are specials in this world, like pieces of a puzzle," he said. "You sought them out, and now you'll either join or you'll face the consequences." His eyes narrowed, as if searching for cracks in our resolve. What's the price?" The question, edges on disbelief, a simmering hope hidden behind fear and confusion. "The price is your memories," he warned, his voice dropping to an ominous whisper. "You would forget." The weight of his words sank in, bringing a sense of urgency. What kind of memory could be worth risking everything? But before I could respond, the shadows around us twisted, coiling up the stone walls like a serpent. In an instant, they surged forward, engulfing him. He shouted, his laughter echoing in the enclosed space, fading as quickly as it rose. I twisted, staring at the whirlpool of shadows. "Now!" I yelled to my companion, bolting forward as the dark energy coiled around him, briefly revealing an escape to another passageway.
She followed closely, fear mingling with adrenaline pushing us ahead. "Where are we going?" she gasped, her breath quickening. "I don't know," I panted, adrenaline heightening my senses. "Somewhere away from him." As we ran down the passageway, I felt the chill of the unknown wrapping around us, but the urgency of the moment pushed us ever onward. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. Each muffled footfall reverberated a promise between us: to survive. Suddenly, I skidded to a stop, my heart racing painfully. There! A light! In the distance, a glow flickered through the shadows, golden and warm. I charged forward, fueled by hope, but uncertainty clawed at my insides. Would it be an escape or another trap? As we neared the light, I felt a pulse of energy, familiar and strange, culminating into a sensation like electricity sparking through the air. I didn't question it. We pressed on, hands outstretched. The passage opened into daylight, spilling warmth over us. We made it.
It? My voice sang with disbelief, but a lingering apprehension shadowed my thoughts. Uncertainty still danced through the air as we stumbled into the warmth and safety of sunlight, and yet a part of me felt incomplete. We turned back toward the darkness. The town held secrets that intertwined us in ways I couldn't fathom. And even in the light, a sliver of shadow remained, echoing that haunting invitation, "Find me." Would there ever be closure? I shook my head. I'd never return to this place, but in my heart, I knew the whispers of truth would linger always, threading through my every thought. I stepped away from that narrow escape, glancing back one last time. Though we had fled, the questions would haunt me forever.